The Black population is now drowning in disinformation in regards to our plight and condition. Disinformation that keeps us confused and divided, and it's all by deliberate design. Millions of Black people are finally waking up from a 400-year mental psychosis created by slavery, colonialism, and ongoing whitewash miseducation. And there are white oppressive forces working unrelentingly behind the scenes to prevent Black people from doing so. They do so by feeding lots of disinformation into our communities in regards to our plight and condition. Because they know that as long as they keep our understandings flawed in regards to our plight and condition, then all of our liberating strategies and remedies that stem from those misunderstandings will also be flawed. My mission is to therefore counter their efforts by providing my people with true, accurate information in regards to our plight and condition. Those who know must teach, African proverb. I will start this video with a rhetorical question. How is it possible to oppress a people for more than 400 years? If you believe that our long-term oppression is a result of a curse and biblical prophecy that must be fulfilled, you are profoundly ignorant. Whenever people are profoundly ignorant, they'll always believe nonsense. I repeat the question. How do you oppress a people for more than 400 years? It's a challenge because whenever people are oppressed for long terms, their collective aggressions against their oppressors will continue to grow until acts of massive rebellion becomes inevitable. It is an inherent response within the collective human psyche and the human condition whenever people are oppressed for long durations. It's a social science fact. Second question, how does the white society maintain its social dominance over Black people for more than 400 years? Another social science fact is that people are inherently tribal and therefore do not naturally accept the long-term dominance of other racial groups over their lives. So how then did the white society achieve these objectives in regards to Black people? How did they achieve the unachievable? The way the white society continues its long-term oppression of Black people and maintains its social dominance over Black people are achieved through the social engineering of the collective minds of Black people. Social engineering is a discipline in social science that refers to efforts to influence particular attitudes and social behaviors on a large scale, practiced by governments in order to produce desired characteristics within targeted populations. Social engineering uses the methods of social science in order to achieve desired results in the human subjects. The social engineering of Black people is achieved through subliminal programming. Subliminal programming are messages that becomes embedded into the subconscious mind without the conscious mind realizing it. Social engineering of Black people have provided the white society with a very efficient way for maintaining its social dominance and control over Black people, as well as to facilitate their long-term oppression of us. They prevent Black people from learning of the social engineering of our minds by feeding disinformation into our communities in regards to our plight and condition. Disinformation that distracts us from the truth. This is why they've misled millions of us to believe that the reason why many Black people now perceive ourselves as being our own worst enemies and now reveres Caucasians in spite of a brutally horrific history to the contrary is because they say it's the Willie Lynch myth and or they say it's the Stockholm syndrome. These premises are both wrong. Both are false premises that have been deliberately spread into our communities by white propagandists to distract and prevent us from learning the truth of our plight and condition, which is that our collective minds have been socially engineered to think in ways that serves and protects the interests of the white society. Here's how. White social scientists determined a long time ago that by constantly inundating the Black population with false news reports, constantly exaggerating the issue of Black on Black crime, and also those reenactment crime TV shows depicting black on black crimes being solved by white detectives. By doing this, they could shift black collective aggressions away from the white society and redirect it against ourselves. Moreover, that they could manipulate us to perceive ourselves as being our own worst enemies and make us believe that we therefore need white people to govern over our lives. And it worked extremely well. This propaganda campaign divided us. It creates black self-loathing, and it shifts black collective aggressions away from the white society and redirects it towards ourselves. Our condition has nothing to do with a silly slave syndrome myth. It is because our minds have been socially engineered to the white society's monopoly over information. Now, here's the true reason why millions of black people now revere Caucasians, in spite of a brutal history to the contrary. That the white society gave their racial group a favorable and accurate image makeover within the collective minds of millions of black people through their movies, constantly depicting themselves as being saviors and heroes, saving lives and righting the wrongs. Most black people do not perceive Caucasians based upon an accurate interpretation of the history shared between our two racial groups. Most black people are perceiving Caucasians based on how they see them repeatedly depicted in movies and TV shows. Most people think that movies and TV shows are made for nothing more than entertainment. That never was the case. The greatest social messages are promoted through films. Social norms promoted through films can influence the way of thinking and the cognitive map of a populated audience. In a normal conversation, when you're using logic and facts, your guard is naturally up. But when you're watching a movie or a TV show, there's no debate. Your guard is therefore down. And the sensor part of your brain is not in action. It isn't saying, yes, I agree with this or I disagree with that, like you would in a debate or in a conversation. When you're watching a movie or a TV show, you're actually in an alpha state, being completely susceptible to subliminal messages, to being downloaded into your mind. As I said before, subliminal messages are messages that becomes embedded into the subconscious minds without the conscious minds realizing it. It was through this media subliminal programming that millions of black people were deliberately socially engineered to revere Caucasians in spite of a brutal history of the contrary. Black reverence towards the white people has nothing to do with the Stockholm Syndrome. We've been programmed through media subliminal programming to do so. Media subliminal programming is not a conspiracy theory. It's a covert, very well-crafted system of control that allows the white ruling class to control the masses and targeted populations. It is a practice that the ruling white class have used for a very long time. White propaganda systematically and repetitively feeds distorted media images and societal narratives into the collective minds of the black population that are designed to subliminally program us to think and behave in ways that benefits the white society. Here's how they subliminally embed the myth of white racial superiority into the subconscious minds of millions of black people. Have you ever noticed that all health studies that we receive from white sources favors whites over blacks? When critically thinking, can't you see just how cartoonishly unrealistic this scenario actually is? It's actually a subliminal programming, propaganda. When black people constantly and repetitively receive health studies, constantly favoring whites over blacks, this is deliberately being done to embed into our subconscious mind that whites are inherently superior to blacks. Again, this happens without most black people even realizing it because the message bypasses the conscious mind and gets embedded into subconscious mind. It's subliminal programming. When the belief that whites are inherently superior to blacks has been successfully embedded into the minds of black people, this makes us more compliant with white dominance over our lives. The program is in fact so effective that in many cases, it causes many black people to even prefer white dominance over our lives. White social scientists describe this nefarious practice And what they've done to us is merely instilling a value system into the collective subconscious minds of Black people that makes us adhere to the authority and existing infrastructure of the white dominant culture. This is the truth of our plight and condition. While Black people studied our Bibles, believing it contained the true words of God that will protect us, white oppressive forces studied instead how to manipulate our collective minds to think in ways that serve their interests, and then use that gained knowledge to mentally enslave millions of Black people. Those Black people who don't critically think never notices their mental chains. Brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up. Don't be fooled. If the oppressors were truly superior, they wouldn't have to work this hard to handicap those who they claim are inferior. The white society sits upon a throne of lies and deceit, but they program us to revere them, to trust them. And in trusting them and revering them, we've been programmed to think against our own interests and in ways that serve their interests. We must elevate our minds to see the truth. As I said in the beginning, because if our understanding remains flawed, then all of our remedies that stems from those misunderstandings will be flawed. They're deploying social engineering tactics against our minds, and it's being deployed unrelentingly every day. Brothers and sisters, time to wake up. One love and peace.